Everybody, welcome to CKAMAs. As a career changer herself, tonight's guest has firsthand experience with the challenges that come with pivoting in your career. Having studied religion as an undergrad and landing a job in finance right out the gate, she quickly found herself unfulfilled by her day-to-day as an investment analyst and made yet another pivot towards education. After working some time for the Department of Education in New York City, she decided to pursue an MBA in hopes of making yet another pivot towards education in the private sector, inevitably leading her to joining Flatiron School. However, it took her 7.5 months to land a role and has been an advocate for people wanting to conduct the job search effectively and a firm believer that Flatiron School's placement success is largely due to their approach to the job search. Please turn your cameras on, unmute yourselves, and help me in welcoming Flatiron School's Head of Career Services, Gretchen Jacobi.
Welcome, Gretchen.
Welcome.
How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for doing this.
Welcome,
Gretchen.
Welcome.
Thank you for the warm welcome.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming on. I'd love to start out with your own job search experiences and some of the insights that you kind of gained firsthand. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you've come to understand about the job search?
Great question. So I've probably had 4 or 5 jobs in my career, but many of those, as you shared my bio, have been career changes or different than what I was studying or doing prior. A lot of what worked for me in those job searches hadn't really hit me until I came to Flatiron School and had this framework for a great job search presented to me. And I could say, oh yeah, that's why that job search I did when I was looking for a job after my first job after college was successful. I didn't realize it was that thing that I did, but it was one of the things that I did. So some of the things I was doing were the right things, even though I didn't have the framework with which to identify those things. And then a lot of the things were the wrong things and were just misconceptions, as you asked about what I thought I should be doing and turns out aren't super effective. So rewinding to basically my first job search, which was to get a job after I graduated from college. As you said, I was a religion major and looking to go into the finance sector. And I ended up getting an opportunity to work at an investment bank, but not because I was a finance major, because they were working with an organization that was recruiting college athletes. And they believed anyways, that college athletes had certain intangible skills, teamwork, collaboration, drive, that they wanted on their team, even if you didn't know, even if that meant that they had to invest more time in training you. And so by leaning into my story of the intangible skills that I brought to those roles, I was able to secure that opportunity after college. Fast forward to my most recent job search, which was the one that lasted 7 months and ended in me finding my way to Flatiron School. I'd say the biggest misconception that I exercised and that I see in our job seekers all the time is that I measured, first of all, I love measuring things. I love setting goals for myself and achieving them. I'm just like a very goal-oriented and competitive person. And so I wanted feedback that I was doing the right thing. And that feedback for me in that job search was a tracker that I created about how many jobs I applied to online. And I was like, this is a really good week. I applied to 20 jobs online, or this was a really great day. I found 5 jobs to apply to online. And it's not always that easy to apply to a job online. You could just use the easy apply button on LinkedIn, but if you're doing extra work, then you're creating a custom resume and cover letter. But judging your efforts in your job search by how many jobs you apply to online is really just putting a lot of work into a type of job seeking that yields very low results. And research tells you that, as does the job searches that I've witnessed of thousands of Flatiron School students, that especially for career changers, you can't just submit your resume and your cover letter because thousands of other people are doing that. And if they have the same experience as the job description, they're going to make it through the robots that cull those resumes and yours aren't. And like harkening back to my first job search for my job after college, what you need to do is, if they were running my resume back then for like, a bachelor's degree in finance or undergraduate coursework in finance, they would have gotten 0 hits and I would have been pushed out of that pile. But I found somebody to tell my story to tell the story about how I could add value to their team based on who I was, not who I wasn't, but who I was. And when you're job seeking, especially as a career changer, you need to find opportunities to tell your story. And the only way you can really tell your story effectively is to people. And so what I wish I had done in previous job searches, and what we recommend to all of our students, is to judge their productivity in a given day or a given week by how many people they talk to. Not how many jobs they apply to online, how many people they talk to, or at least try to make contact to. And those should be individuals whose first and last names and email addresses you have found, and who you've done additional research on in terms of, do they have a blog? What's their background? What do I have in common with them? And how can I send some sort of personalized email to them to get them to want to talk to me? And that's how I would encourage anyone who's doing a job search in any field, not just in tech, to measure what a good week was or a good day was in their job search in terms of the level of effort that they put in and what they're getting out of it. Because what you should be getting out of it is conversation. So like, contact 10 people, you'll get 1 reply, and that's about average. But you should be measuring yourself based on how many people you contact and not how many jobs you apply to.
So how would you say that Flatiron kind of does this differently than other programs, and how they actually guide their own students to kind of have that success that's a little bit more effective than the traditional routes of finding that job?
Yeah, well, first we have part of job seeking is learning how to job seek. So attending this webinar means that you're interested in learning how to job seek. And I think a lot of people assume that they should know how to job seek, or that like they've just picked it up in conversations, but it's actually a learned skill that no one really covers, and except for, I think, certain types of coding boot camps. One of the things that's great about coding boot camps is that they've been built in for the most part, the last 5 to 7 years, specifically around how to get students jobs. And so if you were building a university today, would you be putting the career services department in a building that's 1.5 miles away from campus that nobody knows how to get to, and like is only open from 9 to 10 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and like they just don't have career services front and center at all, and they don't do education on what career services can provide and what a good job search looks like. And for us, we know that the education about what a job search should look like is going to be new information for most students, because it's not necessarily intuitive, and it's not what all of the sort of clickbaity headlines are out there around, like, have a great resume. Yeah, you should have a great resume, but like, a resume is not the most important part. Telling your story is the most important part. So I would say our focus on the fact that this is an educational experience. We know that it's an educational experience, and we know that it's going to require buy-in from our students. So a lot of our students are resistant to this approach because it's something that they're not comfortable with, or they're afraid it puts them out there more. So you're more afraid of rejection, let's say, or like they know one friend who got a job through a job portal, even though that's only like 2% of jobs that are actually gotten are through job portals, but they know that one friend, and they want to do it that way. And so we spend a lot of time sharing examples of the data around why students get jobs through making connections and not through, basically hiding behind their computer and clicking on apply now buttons. So that's one thing I think that we do quite differently, is understanding that it is an educational and buy-in experience, and putting that front and center in our career services offering.
Yeah, there seems to be definitely a theme that we've been seeing lately that's just focusing more on that aspect of being able to tell your story, right? And also telling that story succinctly. A lot of people also seem to believe that they should start preparing for that job search when they're actually in the job search. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think everyone's probably on this call because they're doing some level of preparation for the job search. They're at least understanding what they may have to do in the future, which is good. Although having soft skills and communication skills and intangibles is important to get a job, you also need to demonstrate that you can do the hard skills of a job. And so while you can be having conversations with people about advice on, pivoting your career or advice on engaging with people, we don't encourage students to actually be going on interviews until they're at least 3/4 of the way through the program, because you're just not going to have the technical skills until you're pretty far through the program to be able to pass technical interviews. So you can have conversations about tech, go out and tell people how excited you are about the things that you're learning, and talk to people in the field and say, like, I admire you, how did you get to where you are? And ask them questions. People are super flattered when you ask them questions about themselves. And so that's something that you shouldn't be afraid of. We like to say, like, if you're going to do one thing early, it should be networking. And the best time to start networking is yesterday. So, like, it's not today, it's not tomorrow. It's always yesterday. Whenever yesterday was the best time to start networking. The stronger your network is when you go into a job search, the more leverage you're going to have in that job search. So you should be doing, you should start that in the cradle, basically. Like, you should be doing that very early, is just having conversations with people and then keeping up with those people. It's not just about a single drop in the bucket. It's about continuing to add value to those people. Like, follow them on Twitter, say, I really loved this thing that you posted. If you do something interesting, check in with them. If you see an article that relates to something you talked about in your conversation, send it to them. You've got to keep these contacts warm. You shouldn't talk to them today and then not check in with them again until December with like Happy New Year, I just started in this coding bootcamp and we talked 8 months ago. You can do that, but it's more effective to check in every 2 to 3 months with contacts that are sort of like in your weak tie circle. So I encourage everyone to do that. And yet I also will say that the most important thing about getting a job as a developer or a data scientist or whatever field you're looking to move into technically, is being a great developer or a great data scientist. Like, make sure that you have those hard skills first. Pour everything that you need to if you're in the program or about to go into a program, everything that you need to into that time-bound, really precious learning experience while you're in the classroom, whether it's a physical classroom or a digital classroom. Make sure that you have those skills acquired. You're going to continue to build on them after you graduate, but you want to focus your time, I would say, in program on making sure that you have the skills. And then we pivot students to start thinking about the job search, as I said, about 75% of the way through the program. It's before they graduate, so they still have some time to ramp up. But by that point, they've got their legs under them. They're hopefully like sleeping more than 4 hours a night because early in the program, they think you might be sacrificing a lot of sort of like basic body things in order to keep up with the pace, because these have very rigorous paces. But towards the end, even though you're still learning a ton at a very fast clip, you've probably got your bearings a bit and are ready to start looking forward to the next step.
Yeah, those are all really great points. And before I continue asking questions, I don't want to hog this for the entire event. I'd love to ask the audience now, like, if you all have questions, to go ahead and please use the raise hand feature that is natively built within the Zoom app, just so that we can start selecting people to ask their questions live. And then also feel free to use the chat to drop some questions in there as well. I do ask that you share your video, just so that Gretchen and I can make a face to a name, and you can go ahead and unmute yourselves and start asking those questions. So I see that Michael has a question. Michael, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question?
Hello, Gretchen. How are you?
Hey, Michael, I'm good. How are you?
All right. So one of the things you talked about was getting out and networking and telling your story. What are some of the most effective ways you feel is the most effective way to tell your story, when you're trying to transition into this field and you've been in another one?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And we kind of have like a formula for an elevator pitch is one thing that we think about, and that you should have different versions of your elevator pitch. So you should have a 30-second version of your elevator pitch for if you're at like a meetup, or these days a digital meetup, I suppose, where there's lots of people. You should have a 2-minute version of your elevator pitch to answer the question, tell me about yourself, which you're going to get at the start of every single interview you go on. So please have that question down pat in a way that you love. We actually have students tape themselves doing their 30-second and their 2-minute elevator pitch, and then send those recordings either to peers or to their career coach, and that they watch it themselves so that they can reflect on if they like the way that they found, because it takes some practice and it takes feedback. We all get better with feedback and self-reflection as well. And so the way that we tell students to construct an elevator pitch is by starting with your background, a brief thing that says, like I come out of marketing for medical devices. Then you talk about your transition into tech. And so then the sentence is, and I started dabbling in the website at my company and got hooked and never looked back. You talk about your passion. That was a very abbreviated sentence there, but essentially your transition, how you got interested or re-interested, because for a lot of students, it's really great if you can reference how it was maybe something that you were interested in when you were younger, and it was just something that was rekindled as you got older and got exposed again. And then you talk about the value that you're going to bring into a new company. So you say, I'm looking to apply XYZ hard skills and Y skills in order to create value for your company in this way. So like in order to enhance the shopping experience for your company, for your customers on your app. Those are basically the three things. If it's the right moment, especially in a networking conversation rather than an interview, you might also transition into something that you're learning or building right now as the fourth step, because it opens up the conversation for them to ask questions about what you're building, but that's a little bit less about who you are. The 3 points of who you are this is what I was doing, this is how I got interested, why I transitioned. Be sure to communicate your passion. Passion is something that we hear from our employers is like one of the #1 things that they hire boot camp grads for, is they just love bringing people who are sort of like so wide-eyed and bushy-tailed about this new field. It's this great energy that they can bring out into their tech teams. So make sure to highlight that and have your shining personality come through. And then talk about what value you're gonna bring to the team.
All right, thank you very much.
This is a great question, Michael. Armin, did you want to go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll go ahead and start picking some questions from the chat as well as the ones that were posted prior to this event.
Sure, thank you very much. So my question kind of relates to the previous question, but I wanted to ask if there's any instruction in terms of, kind of messaging to CEOs. I mean, the CEOs you can find them on LinkedIn. It's just a matter of finding a tie with these people. There are, I don't know, Netflix, Amazon, Google. They're just all, over there. But the way you can approach to these people, I would like to hear your opinion on this. Would you say just go ahead and be like, I know a lot about your company, it's great, and I would very much appreciate if you can, take a look at my resume, or to just ask a question?
Hey, Gretchen, I think you.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks. How do you open up the line of communication with a new contact? Depending, they could be really at any level. First of all, most important thing is that you do your research on that person. So you want to know something about the company and the industry. So, has the company had a recent funding round? How big are they? Just what do they do? Poke around on their website. And you're going to want to know anything that could be newsworthy in the industry. So again, my example was like medical devices. Like, do some Googling on the medical devices industry, and there might be something that's salient for your outreach. And then look up the person. One interesting thing, especially a CEO, you gave the example of a CEO, which gives some additional fertile ground for researching somebody than maybe a recruiter, because if you were reaching out to a recruiter, they might have like a different type of online presence, but a CEO probably has podcasts, interviews of some sort. So if you go in and do a Google search of that person's name plus interview or plus podcast, that's when you're going to really uncover like golden nuggets about what's on their mind, what language they like, just sort of what words they use, what their vocabulary is. And you can reflect back when you do outreach to them and say like, I read this thing you wrote. I listened to this thing that you said. I thought it was really interesting because of X, Y, Z. And that is it's just a level of research that people don't usually do. Like, you will increase your chance of getting a response from this person from 1 in 10 to 1 in 2 when you make something that specific about the research that you did about their company or who they are, especially if you can make a connection to yourself. So not just this thing you said was interesting, but it reminded me of this in my past or in my industry. Like, then you're definitely getting a response, basically. 100% chance you're getting a response. And what you should be looking for in that email is something that's achievable. So there should be an ask. The ask should be simple. It should be, I'd love to have 15 to 20 minutes of your time to learn about how you got where you are, or to learn about how you're thinking about building your technical team, or to, if it's, let's say, like somebody in the engineering team, to understand why you made these technical decisions. I thought it was so interesting, or to hear more about what you wrote in this blog post. So the ask is that simple. I'd love to spend 15 to 20 minutes on a virtual coffee with you to learn more from you. And people like to give advice. There's this saying, there's a saying about money. I don't know if you've heard of it. Ask for money and you'll get advice, and ask for advice and you'll get money. Because it's like if you're going out and trying to like raise money for a project or something. When you ask for money, people don't like being asked for money. It's sort of like skipping from dating to the altar. Like they want you to like warm them up first. They like being asked for advice. People like being asked for advice, and they like helping people. Like I said earlier, it's flattering, it creates a good feeling, and everyone just kind of knows that like increases their karma points. And so many people, if you do the research to stand out from the pack, will respond to a 15 to 20 minute ask for a virtual coffee with an absolutely, here's a link to my calendar.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Great. I think we also have a couple of questions in this chat. I'm seeing, let's see here. So I think that Karen in this chat is kind of interested in how Flatiron specifically sets them up with employers. Do you guys have a in-house recruiting team, or do you create the opportunities by organizing networking events? What does that kind of look like? And yeah, how do graduates kind of meet their potential employers, or do you just kind of guide them through that?
Yeah. So Flatiron School specifically, every boot camp is different, but Flatiron School specifically, we have a team of 15 associates who spend all day, every day, reaching out to potential employers and talking up the talent that's coming out of our classrooms and saying, hey, I see you just raised a round of funding, or hey, I see you have a job posting up for a role that our graduates are usually great fits for. They have the same ask that I just mentioned, basically, like, can I get 15 to 20 minutes of your time, not to ask for advice in this case, but can I get 15 to 20 minutes of your time to share more about who our graduates are and to understand what you're looking for in your role so that I could potentially make some matches. And by the way, it's free. We put that in the email too, because companies don't pay us to connect really talented developers and technical talent for them. If they worked with another external recruiter, they may have to pay for that, but we do that for free for employers. So that team is working on behalf of our students to make matches with employers whenever they can, and whenever there's a really good fit between our graduate and the employer. The trick there's a couple of tricks there. It sounds too good to be true. It's not too good to be true. It is true, but there's extra layers of work that are involved. Namely, we don't make hiring decisions, right? Like, it's still in the company's hands. So we just make a match. It's amazing. We basically allow candidates, our graduates, to skip to the front of the line with these interview processes, to go straight to phone screen with recruiter or with hiring manager. But ultimately, our graduates are probably competing with other boot camp graduates or other candidates from that hiring manager's network, and they still need to be the best candidate in that pipeline for that role in order to get a job. We can't make them be the best candidate in that pipeline. We can get them to the front door. We can get them to the front door, but after that, they've got to prove themselves in the interview process. And so what's so important is for our graduates to not be sort of sitting back, waiting at home for an opportunity to land on their doorstep that's just served up to them. They need to be doing the work themselves, because the more, like I said earlier, the more practice you get telling your story, the more practice you get writing thank you follow-up notes, the more practice you get doing technical interviews and whiteboarding exercises, the better you're going to be. And often the first shot is not the best you're going to be. And so the more that you can line up those opportunities for yourself in your job search and get more cracks at that, if, 2 months into your job search, you are presented with an opportunity from our employer partnerships team, you're going to be that much crisper on your elevator pitch. You're going to be that much stronger in your code challenge responses because you spent those 2 months not waiting for an opportunity to be presented to you, but going out, honing your skills, doing the work, having the conversations, and really just kind of becoming battle tested in the job search world, because you kind of got to. You're not going to be as polished on day 1 as you will be on day 60, and that's just a fact of life.
Yeah, that's definitely the case, and it's always really playing that long-term game. So I actually wanted to also pull up some of these questions that we had posted prior to the event. And so I'll go ahead and share my screen for a quick second. Hopefully this is the right page here. Can everyone see my screen here? Awesome. So for those of you that didn't know, we actually also asked you guys to submit some of the questions via posts here. And for you all that have not been able to visit discussions yet, we actually have a whole board here that you guys can interact with, and we received a ton of really awesome questions. This is actually like a search for the event specifically, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of questions. I think this Zoom bar is kind of making, okay, I'm pulling it up here. Sweet. So we have really great questions that have been submitted by Vania and like a handful of other people as well. Gretchen, do you mind potentially covering maybe her first, actually, let's see here. So this actually seems to be like a fairly solid question for a lot of folks here. So would you have any tips or resources for people to kind of stay sharp on their skills after boot camp while they're going through this job search? And I'll go ahead and unshare my screen here.
Totally. And our audience today, do you mostly have folks who are interested in software engineering courses or also other disciplines?
You all can also let us know by throwing either a thumbs up on your video chat or in the chat itself, like in the Zoom chat. You can go ahead with a thumbs up, or just let us know what okay, perfect. Software engineering.
But some other ones.
Data science,
a lot of data science. Oh wow, okay, great. I'm just trying to think what resources, because a lot of them are discipline specific. Flatiron School has 4 disciplines: cybersecurity, digital design, software engineering, and data science. Thanks everyone for dropping that in there. It looks like I should mostly cover software engineering and data science in my response here. I mentioned this earlier in terms of needing to have the hard skills as sort of table stakes for getting through an interview process, and so why it makes sense to wait to go on interviews until you've completed, until you're close to graduation. But even after graduation, there's, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, more learning that's going to be happening. You're still not completely a butterfly developer. You're still coming out of your cocoon. We talk about being students for life and lifelong learning. And some of that learning is stuff that you're on the hard skill side, on the technical stuff side, is learning that you're doing specific to a job search, which is kind of annoying. Like, it's not necessarily the technical stuff that you're going to be doing day in and day out in a job, but it's just the way that bars are being given, that assessments are given in job searches. And so you need to practice, like getting reps in. You need to do practice on what those technical interview formats typically are for those two disciplines. And so, I mean, first of all, there's just a ton of websites out there that have timed questions, which is what you're going to get. You're going to get some sort of timed question or challenge where either you're given it in person or it's a take home. You might get 3 hours or you might get 7 days, depending on what's being asked of you, to show that you can meet the technical bar. And there's a bunch of software engineering exercises that are available on different websites. There's Code Wars is a really popular one, Interview Cake, Leap Code, Pramp, HackerRank. There's a whole bunch. For data science, the most popular one, that one's a shorter list. The most popular one is definitely Kaggle. And so these are websites where you can just, again, get more at bats at doing these timed technical interview questions, basically data science challenges or coding challenges, they may call them. And so we recommend after graduation that students spend about half their day on job search stuff, researching companies, sending personalized outreach, networking, and then about half their day on technical stuff. And the half of their day that they're spending on technical stuff should include, depending on the complexity of the challenge, but at least there should be a daily diet of doing these challenges. So like get one in a day, your entire job search, and then you are gonna, again, maybe not on day 1, but by day 30 or day 60, you are gonna be able to crush those technical interviews that you go into.
Yeah, those are a ton of really awesome resources. And for the people that are interested in them, we'll also be posting this video on this recording on YouTube. So you can go ahead and rewind that, replay that, and take note of all those wonderful resources we got there. So I see that Kimberly and Alexis have their hands up. Kimberly, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Melvin. And again, welcome, Gretchen. Thank you so much for the wonderful information you've given us so far. On April 14th, we had, or some of us have been in a lecture with James Guajardo. And in that lecture, I neglected to ask, and I'm not sure if you know the specific answer to this, but when determining eligibility for the ISAs, does Flatiron check credit? Or what is their criteria for that? Because I can't find specific criteria for that.
I do not know the answer. You have stumped me. I don't spend as much time on the admissions.
Sorry.
And so we'll have to follow up with you, Kimberly. If you want to, Melvin, if you have Kimberly's contact info and want to provide it, I'd be happy to get you the information directly.
Wonderful, thank you.
Or I'm Gretchen at flatironschool.com. Maybe it's easier if it's easier for you to reach out to me. That's my email.
They checked my credit when I got my.
Okay, I'm sorry. What is your email again, Gretchen?
Gretchen at flatironschool.com.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Awesome. So looks like Alexis, you're up next.
Hi, thank you once again for taking these questions. My question has to do with, I'm at the very beginning stages of this, haven't started a boot camp, but I'm interested in a career in data visualization. So I was just wondering if that's, first of all, just an in-demand field that I could possibly even work in after completing a data science or data analyst program.
Absolutely. Like short answer, yes. I mean, data science is a catch-all term, which I have to say, like, in some ways it's a marketing term because it's like the word that people know to look for. It's just been like this term that the boot camp industry has converged upon, that people, you know, it's definitely an in-demand field for data science, but it's a very immature field as well. And the reason I flagged that is because so few of the jobs that are data science jobs actually have the title data scientist. This is true back in some ways back in like 2012, 2013, 2014, when Flatiron School was founded for software engineering. There was no concept in 2013 of a junior software engineer. Like that, just nobody had thought of or an associate developer, or titles that now exist out there very, very frequently. And so today, now there's been more maturity in the software engineering market, especially around recruiting bootcamp grads in. And so there's still a long list of job titles, but there's more general agreement about what those job titles should be to get eyeballs on them, especially if they're being posted. And so we've seen students accept jobs from the data science program with everything. Like, I actually think, it's funny you say that, like, I think we've had somebody whose title was like data visualization expert. Like, we get, data intelligence consultant, business intelligence analyst. Like, there's this word cloud of like 15 words, and they just put those words together in whatever random order to come up with the job title. And it's really about what you're doing in the job and not the job title itself. It's what they're going to be asking you to do on a day-to-day basis. And if you can analyze data, you can visualize data. And in fact, you should be able to analyze data if you want to visualize data. The two things should be side by side, especially in a smaller company. You're probably going to be doing both. And in order for you to have like the widest aperture of number of companies that you might be eligible for in terms of what you're looking for, you're going to want to have like the broadest array of skills you can. So you can get more specialized into a specific sort of pillar of data science, let's say data visualization, as you go through your career. But at the outset, being a little bit more of a Jill of all trades, if you will, within the field makes you more useful to employers and makes more employers able to hire you, because smaller employers are going to want people who have a wider range of skills.
Great, thank you. So we do have 15 minutes left, and before we close this off, I did want to go ahead and like run that raffle that we have going on. But before I do so, I actually think there's one other point that is super insightful for Gretchen to share with us tonight. So I kind of wanted to ask, and this actually helps people that aren't even in the job search themselves, but so as COVID-19 kind of stays on top of mind, do you mind kind of sharing some of the insights that Flatiron has learned and any bits of advice that you have for those navigating the job search now, or since it will kind of affect the future job market and certain things that are just kind of unforeseeable, how do you advise people to kind of prepare for this or approach this?
Yeah, that is a great question, and something we've been paying really, really close attention to over the last 6-7 weeks is how the external economic environment is impacting our employers who we work with regularly, as well as new employers that we're contacting. And we've definitely seen an impact. Hiring has slowed. We've seen employers who are putting in place hiring freezes or hiring delays, but we've also seen bright spots. So while there's been some slowing, the well is not dry. We've had over 70 students get new jobs this month. A typical month would be larger than that, but it's still 70 students who just changed their lives, getting brand new careers that they've been going after. that they're super passionate about, that they love. And that's actually one of the most encouraging things that we can tell our currently enrolled students, that when we're like, look, every single day we're hearing about an offer or a placement more than once a day on average, obviously with those numbers. Like, there is activity out there. I know we're all stuck at home and have our face on our phones and are reading the headlines about unemployment claims. What some of that is missing is that there are different industries and sectors that are going to be impacted differently by the current environment, of course. And the tech sector is somewhat insulated because, first of all, the jobs can be done remotely for the most part, even if they used to be in the office. This is true of like a lot of office work, but a lot of the unemployment is coming from jobs that are just pure in-person jobs that can't be done remotely. I think employers might still have a preference for in-person work after we can be in person again. And so these jobs that have moved remote might go back to offices. We'll see. I think there's a lot of predictions about that. But because the jobs can be done, they are still having people do them, and they are still hiring for them. The other thing about tech is that, like, look at what we're doing now. People are leaning on technology more than ever right now when they can't be together. This is the way that we do work. You look at tools for remote work environments, whether it's like a Monday.com project management tool, or of course the Zooms and Slacks of the world. These and frankly, even all of the social media channels are saying that their page views are skyrocketing. People are leaning on technology in order to do business, like in order just to do business and in order to stay connected. And even though revenue has been impacted for a lot of businesses, especially in-person revenue, think of a retail, like your favorite clothing store. Yeah, their revenue is definitely down, but any revenue they do have left is all online, and their e-commerce business has just grown. That's how they're doing business right now. And so we've seen actually growth or continued placements and offers from industries that support e-commerce, that support digital payments, digital banking. These are areas that are actually experiencing growth at this moment, even though many industries have been severely impacted. And so if you're creative, there are still opportunities out there, first of all. And then secondly, when these hiring freezes thaw, this is why the best time to network is yesterday. If you have put that well-timed email with a good ask and good research into people's inboxes, also being sensitive to the current environment, yes, those were a lot of things, but if you honor all of those guidelines and connect with people now, keep making connections now, you're going to be top of mind when these freezes thaw. And so there's still work to be done in this environment. You shouldn't be focusing purely on, can you hire me right now? Because that's the equivalent of saying, do you have money for me right now? And again, people don't like that. People like asking, like when you talk to them, like people, not job givers. So there's still a lot of activity amongst our job seekers, and we think that the type of activity that we encourage will make them well positioned when hiring does get some more life in it. But again, they're still hiring right now. A whole bunch of students just changed their lives this month, and it's amazing and gratifying to see. And we're hopeful May will be better than April, and that April was essentially a low point, but we're gonna continue to support students as long as we need to, and as long as they need to, until they get to their finish line.
Yeah, those are incredibly valuable points, and it's kind of like having this base layer of certain things to keep in top of mind as you're going through these job searches, right? Like treating people as human beings like they should be, and like really being considerate over like these things and being intentional about your approach. And that will extend beyond just this pretty bizarre environment that we're all currently in. So I appreciate that. So I think that I did want to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. There's been a lot of anticipation for this raffle that we have going on tonight. So we had a ton of people. Can everyone see this like big color wheel on my screen here? Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So the way that this is going to work, and I'm going to go ahead and see if I'm missing anything in the chat. Okay, cool. We had a ton of people register for this event, but the winner will be announced right now. And you have to be like with us in this live audience in order to kind of claim it. So yeah, let's get things on the road. Let's do this. So I'll go ahead and click this, and if you see your name, congratulations. We're going to give you also a minute or two just to introduce yourselves. And so our lucky winner for tonight is...
Why my name is not there?
Emily Brown. Emily Brown, are you in this chat with us tonight? Do we see an Emily Brown? I'll go ahead and
Hopefully.
I guess it goes
let me know if you
Alexa
see
Brown.
Emily Brown in the chat, or perhaps she's unmuted. I'll give her a couple more seconds to kind of claim this win.
How about Alexis Brown?
Yeah,
That's what I said, Alexis.
Brown, right?
Thank you for your vote.
Looks like she might have dropped off. That's unfortunate. So I guess we'll go ahead and remove her name from here.
Why my name is not in the list?
And so
let me jump in. I
there's
think this
actually
is
a ton of
Seymour, by
names
the
here
way.
at the bottom.
Yeah, this is a long list of names, so some of them you might not see at the top. Yeah.
Okay, I
But
see.
this is also our first time doing this, and I appreciate everyone being patient. I know I'm standing between you and winning the raffle, so Melvin, let's do this. Let's see who the next winner is.
Let's give this another spin. Super high stakes here. This is really fun, by the way. All right, and we see
Who made this?
Fred Walker.
Fred, are you on here?
That was close.
Are you on here tonight?
No, I
No?
don't see him.
2 for 2.
He's not
Okay.
there. Again.
Let's give
All right.
Fred a minute.
Let's go.
If he's on here.
Yeah, let's give Fred a quick second here. Fred has also dropped off, it looks like.
Look at him participants. He's not in there.
I don't think
All right.
anyone's mad at that.
Wow.
Okay, let's go for this. The third time's the charm. Third time's the charm. All right, Sundus or Sundus. I do have an email attached to this as well, so we can make sure that they get notified.
Cool, they're on.
She's
Oh,
in here.
he's in
She's
here.
in here.
All right.
Is she? Oh, good.
Awesome.
Yay.
Hey,
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congrats, man.
Congratulations.
Let's do a big congrats.
Congratulations.
Let's I want to give her a quick, like 30-second introduction. I'd love to get to know Sundus a quick second. Sundus, do you mind unmuting yourself and just like introducing yourself to the community? Perhaps like how long you've been with CK and how you're feeling right now. Yeah, all right, 1 second.
Cool. Yeah, and this is our first, like I said, this is our first time doing this giveaway just to see how it goes, and we'll try to do more of these. And not only do you get to meet our guest, but you can also win some prizes, which is going to be fun. But we also have one more giveaway after this, so don't drop off yet, because Melvin's going to do another giveaway for the top post on discussions.
And then we
Hi
also
guys,
have,
can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. How are you guys? How's everyone doing?
Doing well.
Doing good.
Okay, my name
Huge
is
congrats.
Jama. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm 19 years old. I just started my journey in coding. I'm currently learning Java at the moment. I'm looking to kind of venture off into cybersecurity and take my Security Plus. So I'm not really that much into coding as of yet. Like my journey just started, but CK has really been valuable learning web development and pretty much HTML, CSS.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations. And I'll be sure to message you after this event so that you can go ahead and claim your reward. So we're going to also go ahead and do this for the posts as well. We actually had a lot less posts. So for all of you that are on this call tonight, next time, go ahead and submit a post as well, because we're actually also taking inventory of the people that have posted and having a raffle for that as well. So thank you all to everyone that actually submitted their posts on here. I know that we didn't get a chance to get through all of the questions, but we did take a look at some of them and wanted to highlight some of the best ones that we saw were super valuable. I think this is up. All right, so we have this wheel here for that squad, and I'll go ahead and just like start this off as well. Best of luck. And it looks like our second winner is William Munoz.
Yay!
Perhaps? Do we have a William in the chat tonight?
Hey, I'm here. What's
Congratulations.
Yay!
Whoa,
Congratulations.
William. All right.
Yeah.
Here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you mind giving us a quick little introduction, how you're feeling, what you're up to?
Nothing much. Just been taking like the prep work for Flatiron. Yeah, so I'm just starting right now. So yeah, it's going pretty good.
Awesome.
I'm enjoying it. I'm feeling pretty good. Thank you guys.
For sure. I'll
man,
be sure to.
William.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just want to say thanks for asking the question. And I know this morning we had no questions. I think we had one question on discussions, and by the end of the day we had 20. But you definitely have better odds. So next time, people take advantage of that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So before we close out, Gretchen, I do have one final question for you, and it's aimed to help people kind of make progression towards their career goals, and not just take the valuable insights that you've given us tonight in one ear and out the other, but to actually take it and implement it in their own lives. So my question to you is, what is the one thing people can do this week that'll help them move closer towards their goal of breaking into tech?
So many things. So we're only gonna give one because that's what makes it most actionable. I've spent so much time talking about human connections this hour, so I have to make it about that. But to make it really specific, when you're networking, you can reach out to people you don't know at all, like that you find out about on the internet. But you can also reach out to your close family and friends and let them know what you're looking for, and then ask for referrals of people that they may know. And there's like these concentric circles of people that you know or that they know. And there's these terms about like a super connector. You want to tap into a super connector who can tap you into a whole bunch of other people. So reach out to, in this case, I would say somebody that you haven't talked to, who you know, who's not a new connection, but who you haven't talked to in 3 years or more. Someone who like you were closer with 3+ years ago, but you just haven't made the opportunity. I mean, we're all going through something so unique right now. There's some shared connection you can call upon and say, hey, you know, like I wanted to check in with you. You're also a person who knows me well from this perspective because we used to work together or we used to go to school together, and I'm thinking about making a career change. I'd love to bounce some ideas off of you about that change as well as to hear about what you're up to. So make it a person just to make it specific and make it fun. Try to find somebody who you knew well 3+ years ago, but you haven't talked to in that long.
That is incredible advice and super actionable. I really hope that everyone here does that. And actually, I would love to hear all of your experiences doing so by posting in discussions and letting us know like how that went. I'll be sure to share those with Gretchen, and Gretchen can chime in and interact with some of your posts and just you know, see that it didn't go out deaf ears. So Gretchen, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and everyone else on this call. It's been really fun and definitely a interesting way of doing things tonight. I appreciate all of you, and remember that this has been 1 hour that you invested towards your career goals. So I applaud you. And Gretchen, again, thank you so much for spending the time with us.
Thank you, everyone. It was great to meet you. Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Good night.
Gretchen. Thanks,
Thank
Melvin.
you.
Thanks, Gretchen.
Good night, everyone. Stay
Thank
safe.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Stay safe
Bye.
too.
All right, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye, Debbie.
Bye, everyone.